Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing a new episode to you today. Today's episode is going to be a very interesting one. I'm excited about it. It is with Sarcos, and Sarcos provides exoskeletons. Exoskeletons being basically kind of bionic suits that you put on, gives you extra strength to do certain tasks, and takes some better ergonomics and things of that nature, which we'll hear more about and kind of what the whole idea is. I was really interested in this. I came across it at Modex. Actually, it was like one of the first things I noticed when I walked in to the floor to set up my booth, and it kind of struck me. And so I inquired about it, and here we are. So today we're going to talk to Kristi Martindale. She is the Chief Customer Officer and Executive Vice President of Product Strategy for Sarcos. So Kristi, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well, Kevin. Thank you so much for the invite. Very happy to be here.
Definitely. I'm happy to connect with you. I'm really interested in hearing more about Sarcos and the whole exoskeleton idea. So why don't you fill us a little bit in on, I guess, what Sarcos is and what it is that you guys do?
So, of course, Sarcos Robotics, we are one of the global leaders in design, development, and deployment of mobile and dexterous robots. So what we do is we focus on combining human intelligence, instinct, and judgment with the robotic strength, endurance, and precision to ultimately enhance the human performance and make an impact into industry. So all of our robots that we focus on are really about how to augment the human capabilities and also enable them to do work more safely.
Okay, interesting. So it's essentially, I mean, my impression of it is like from what I saw is it's like a suit, and you put it on, and it gives you this ability, and it has like different grippers and things of that nature, and it allows you to basically increase your strength so you can do more heavy duty tasks and have less strain on you. Is that correct?
Right. The Guardian Exo is a full-bodied, powered exoskeleton suit. So the human operator would get into the suit, and they would stand in it, and the suit enables that human operator to lift up to 200 pounds of weight, and that human operator will not feel any of the strain or the lift of the weight. There's a little bit of feedback, so they know they're lifting something, but the suit bears the weight of the item that's being lifted as well as the suit itself. So it really enables the human operator to be able to lift these heavy objects continually without causing any strain or injury to their bodies, their back, any injuries into their lower extremities. It enables them to do more. It's battery powered, so it's able to operate 8 hours on a single charge, a continual operation, essentially via hot swappable batteries.
Okay.
And as you were talking about, they have end effectors. We call them end effectors. They're essentially the Guardian Exo's hands, and those grippers, depending on the task that is being approached and what somebody's trying to do within the Guardian Exo, the end effectors would be specific to accomplishing that task. So they may be a gripper, or they may be a hook, or they may be a magnet to latch onto something. That really is dependent upon what's trying to be accomplished.
Okay, really, really interesting stuff. And it's It's pretty impressive to look. I mean, it's actually just very cool to look at too, I think, when I saw it at Modex. So, but I'm interested to know, I guess, kind of how did the idea of this come about? I saw that this is something that's been in development for like 20 years now. I read in the notes. And so how did this kind of come about? And then how did it kind of develop into what it is now?
So it's been a long history. Sarcos has a long history of doing robotic solutions, everything from dinosaurs in theme parks to humanoid robots to even the robotic fountains at the Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas. So a very long history of creating these advanced robotic solutions. Originally, it was a part of the University of Utah and spun out in the early 1980s. And there was a period of time, about 7 years, where the company was a division of Raytheon, and it was focused exclusively on cutting-edge technologies for the government. But what happened in 2015, there was a management buyout, and we took all of the technologies that we saw commercial potential for and started focusing on how we could make those technologies available and viable for a commercial market. One of those is obviously the Guardian XO. We had an early version of the Guardian XO in 2010 that was hydraulically powered. So really what we've done is we've taken all of our knowledge from all of these different types of advanced robotic solutions and combined it into what is now the Guardian XO so that we can really make an impact and make a commercially viable, full-body powered exoskeleton suit.
Okay, very interesting. So definitely a long history there. I think it's really interesting. You said you guys made robotic dinosaurs. That's pretty cool. And now to this. And So now to this. So very interesting process in how that kind of evolved and now where we're at. And the Guardian XO is something that's just kind of new to the market, correct? If I read that correctly, like it was available to defense, and then I think you're recently doing a partnership with Delta Airlines. Is that correct? And then it's coming out more later this year. Is that correct?
So yes, we're in our alpha trials now. So the early version in 2010 was the hydraulically powered. Okay. Over the last 20 years, we spent time focusing on reducing the power consumption, so it could be autonomously powered, meaning that it could operate independent of being plugged into a power source. So that's where the batteries come into play. So at the beginning of this year, we announced a partnership with Delta. You saw our demonstrations at CES, the large consumer electronics trade show in Las Vegas.
Right.
And we're also we announced we're doing our alpha trials with their frontline employees. So they were the first airline to come forth and have their frontline workers really engage with us and get exposure to the Guardian XO and give us real-time feedback on what it's like to wear and operate and use the Guardian XO in their daily operations.
On the Delta side of things, what type of, give us an example of kind of what they're using it for. They're using it for like lifting bags and things of that nature. What are they using it for there?
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
So, and at Delta, what some of the items they're looking at are in their maintenance areas and also in their cargo handling operations.
Okay, interesting. So kind of the heavy lifting there. I remember actually, I think it was Kiko who was telling me, I guess you could essentially, because your hands are somewhat free too, because you have these other attachments that you're talking about before. So you could essentially like have hold a tire up, I think she was telling me, and then be able to screw the tire in with your hand normally as well while the suit is kind of holding the tire. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yeah. So the Guardian XO, one of the features it has that we think is really extraordinarily helpful is when you lift a weight or an item with the robot's arm, you can then lock the arms in place. So you can lift, as she mentioned, a tire and put it into place without your own self having to lift that. The robot does the work. And then once it's in place, if you need to do a finite, very, very finite dexterous task, you can remove your arms out of the robot and do those dexterous tasks while the robot arms are holding that item in place.
Very cool. So it kind of makes you also, not only gives you great strength, but it also makes you kind of four-handed, I guess. It's an extra set of hands, which is always nice when working.
Absolutely. It allows you to do work that maybe might require multiple people to do. It enables a single person to do that job because they're able to hold that item in place. And then, as you mentioned, they get an extra set of hands in their own hands and being able to use other tools that they may need to bolt along or other tasks as needed to perform that operation.
Okay, very interesting. So now, I mean, exoskeletons as a whole, I was actually pretty surprised. It's actually funny because before Modex, I had a friend who listens to the podcast, and she was saying, like, I want you to do, I have a request for a podcast, talk about exoskeletons. So I was like, oh, okay, like, let me figure out what I can do about that. And then it just happened when I walked into the floor at Modex on Sunday to set up the new warehouse booth there. Like, the first booth that I saw was yours, and the exoskeleton, the Guardian XO was there, and you guys had security guard and everything. I was like, oh, what is this? This is very cool. But then I started to notice that exoskeletons were they had kind of a large presence at Modex this year. So how do you see kind of the trend in exoskeletons growing, and do you think the demand for something like that is increasing as well?
Absolutely. What we're finding is there's a number of industry factors that are contributing to this need for companies to be more protective of their workforce and also be able to do more with the people that they have, enable their people to work longer. So there's a number of different dynamics. One is before COVID, and we see even this trend through and after COVID, there is still a labor shortage in sectors that require a lot of, heavy or manual labor. So there's this labor shortage. People are aging out of the system, and then the newer generation is not as interested in getting into those types of roles.
Definitely.
And it's even in warehousing where, there's a lot of automation, there's still a need for workers. And warehouses across the country are struggling to find those workers. So in addition to having a hard time finding them, there's a huge turnover. It's something like 25 to 50% of turnover in warehousing. So if you couple those two items of not being able to find them, the high turnover, and you add to that occupational injuries that occur from these repetitive lifts or moving items on a regular basis that are heavy, which ultimately costs the U.S. alone about $100 billion in back injuries through loss of work and workers' comp claims. So when you put all those factors together, we see a growing interest in deploying these solutions that enable humans to stay safe while still performing these roles that require the heavy lifting and moving of heavy items.
Definitely. I definitely am interested to see how it will grow. And I think it's a different kind of solution because there's some things I think that automation and robotics, at least for now, still have a hard time tackling or tackling in a practical sense. So kind of enabling the human to be a little robotic or bionic in a sense with these suits. I mean, it still allows them to have, like we talked about before, that dexterity, but gives them that extra strength so that they're not becoming fatigued or they're not having strain, and like you said, reducing the amount of back injuries. I mean, that's huge just right there. So so it's a really good thing. So what, that's kind of like the trend and what we're seeing with demand, but what was the overall impression at Modex from customers who were seeing it and, for the first time, maybe, and what was the initial reaction? You mentioned at CES too. How was the response at those shows?
It's really great. One of the things, like you said, it's something that hasn't been widely talked about or discussed. And so many of the people at Modex were surprised, and it's not something they'd ever been able to see before. So a lot of interest and excitement, and we had great conversations about the applicability within narrative industries throughout the conference. One of the things it was unfortunate, given the timing of the show, we weren't able to do the live demonstrations and allow the participants to experience what it feels like to have that superhuman strength. We were able to do that at CES, though, and it was just, we had so much attention, and I mean, we had people coming by and a lot of awards even, and just the general excitement of the potential of the technology and industry. And then when you had the opportunity to go and try it, and people got to experience what it felt like to lift a 50-pound item as if it was, you're a drink. And you could see the excitement on their face. It was so much fun. And it was really helped bring to life for them the game-changing potential of the technology.
Yeah, very interesting. I definitely was, I was bummed out that I couldn't try it at Modex. So hoping to have an opportunity sometime in the future, just to see that. And, I can imagine, how kind of, like you said, surprising and exciting it is to be able to just lift something so easily. And I think as soon as people probably experience, the gears start turning of like all the different applications that they can do with this. So I think it's really something that's probably that's going to grow for sure. And I think it's going to make a big difference, especially in just overall worker safety and comfort levels. And it's going to make jobs a lot easier too. So with that being said, and kind of the mention before about robotics and automation, there's continuing debate about robots taking over jobs, right? Versus like, people say robots are going to take jobs, but then some people say robots will eventually elevate the jobs that are out there. But I'm wondering what you think about how these exoskeletons like the Guardian XO are going to help humans kind of accomplish more, and if it's going to create some sort of alternative to, I guess, robots and automation, like it will maybe help to retain some jobs, or, what you're thinking of is about that. And will it be an alternative for some companies instead of robotics in some cases?
Yes, it's very interesting. As with any technology revolution, you see that often there's new workflows and new opportunities created as new technologies come into the market. I mean, we talked a little bit before about the labor shortage and the cost of keeping employees healthy and safety on the job. Some other things we didn't talk about, though, that we're finding as a trend is the equalization of the workforce. So I'm short, I'm 5'1", and not somebody that could go into a warehouse and lift 70 to 100 pounds on a regular basis. I mean, right. I probably last 30 seconds and I'm out, right? We see this as, because of male or female, you'll be able to do the same kind of work. It doesn't matter how tall or small you are, female, male, size, strength, the robot is going to help augment and assist, and it's going to be taking on that load. So humans, their bodies, they don't wear down and break down. I mean, often what you find out is before somebody is really even done with working in that particular sector, by the time they're trained and being at optimal performance, their body is degrading to the point where it's time for them to move on or get out. Right. And we see this as an opportunity for people to be able to work in roles or operations that they love for a longer period of time. And so you have the equalization, you have the kind of enabling the workforce to stay more productive and healthy in a role for a longer period of time. And we also, interestingly enough, during this kind of uncertain time, we're finding that a solution such as this would enable some continuity of work. I mean, there's also, obviously there's a lot of essential workers that have to go to work, many that we wouldn't address, such as healthcare, but there's things like construction, and we're hearing in those sectors, they're having to figure out how do they stay safe, how do they do social distancing, but still do the work that is considered essential, right? And oftentimes that work requires people to be working in close proximity because of something they're lifting or holding into place. And so we see a solution such as ours being able to fill that gap in a way. So something that might have taken two people to lift and hold and maneuver conceivably could be done by a single person wearing the Guardian Exo suit.
Yeah, those are some very interesting points. Actually, I like the fact that you talked about the equalization of the worker, because that also kind of addresses something you mentioned before about the labor shortage that we see in different sectors, especially in sectors where the work, like you're talking about, is like either it's tough or it's monotonous, and kind of the equalization there can help with the labor shortage too, because it opens those opportunities up to more people, because the exoskeleton and Guardian XO gives them more functionality in that spot. And you talked about you being 5'1", so actually I'm curious, how does that work from a suit perspective? Like, are there different sizes of the suit, or does the suit expand and shrink, or how does that work?
Yeah, you put water on it, it goes. No. So what during our alpha trials, our alpha unit is a smaller aperture of height. So it's 5'9" to 6'1". But the commercial version of the suit that will be available at the end of 2020, it is going to be designed to meet a 95% of the working force. So what we see that in when we did our analysis, the size envelope is 5'1", 5'2" to 6'2". So you have a pretty good range within there in terms of the size of the person that could work within the suit, and how those size changes would make. We're working through a few of those details yet, but that is the ultimate goal for the commercial product.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. I was curious how that works. Like, do I need like a medium or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting stuff. So, and I like the points you made in there. So, now, I mean, it seems like Sarcos really said the commercial version is going to be available the end of this year. So it's kind of just the beginning, in a sense, right, for this to be out in, like, I guess, the regular working world and commercial world. So where does Sarcos go from there? What does the future of Sarcos look like?
So, we are at the beginning, and what we're finding as we're learning and talking to potential customers, and we have an XTAG group, which is an exoskeleton technical advisory group, and what we're learning from all of these people is the potential is endless, in that not only the suit in its current format, but there's a lot of tasks that it's not just heavy lifting. It's, if you think about using heavy tools, torquing, pushing and pulling items, there's a lot of injuries that occur in the workforce, and we see just the opportunity growing exponentially. And so as we're looking and working with our customer base and our technical advisory group, we see just potential across narrative industries. And so we are, hoping that we're going to be able to address a lot of these concerns and challenges these businesses have in keeping their employees safe. So we're going to continue that path and continue focusing on that, and hopefully be able to get it into many, many industries across the globe.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking right now, I guess, as you're talking about it, and I just think there's so many applications for it from a commercial perspective. And then I'm thinking, does at some point in the future, do we have like a kind of a personal exoskeleton too that we can use, for like gardening around the house or something? Like, I had a tree fall down in the front yard, I need to like pick it up, or my neighbor's not home. I don't know. So I mean, it's really interesting, and I feel like the possibilities for the application, just in my mind, are endless. So I'm really excited to see how it starts to get applied, and then even like you mentioned before about, the jobs where it takes more than one person, just really because it's lifting, does it also help companies now optimize a little more and be a little more efficient in the sense with their staffing too, in order to, maybe do a job that required two people just because you need two people to lift it. Now you can do as one, which gives you a little more flexibility too. So really, really interesting stuff. And I'm excited to see what happens and, the reaction when it really hits out into the commercial market, and definitely excited to see the different applications for it. So how can people find out more information about Sarcos, and how can they kind of see some more stuff about it?
Our website, Sarcos, SARCOS.com, has great videos and a lot of information there, and be happy to answer any questions. We're all listed on the website, and so anybody that has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them and give them any additional information they might need.
Okay, great. And we'll post all that information, and we'll post a video on the newwarehouse.com as well, so everybody can see the Guardian XO in action. So Kristi, thank you so much for coming on the show, and really, really excited to see what the future of Sarcos holds.
Kevin, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.